Hello everyone, I'm Mahmoud Mansi from HR TV. We are now in Dubai in the HR Summit and Expo, and I'm thrilled today to be talking to Jason Averbook.
How are you?
Hi, nice to finally
meet
you.
Yes.
So a very interesting career, and what I find super interesting as well is being an author. What I notice nowadays, some of the professionals, they're going beyond the traditional career, and they're doing public speaking, they're writing, some are even painting. So how do you describe that? Can you tell us a little bit about your journey in this?
Well, so it's really interesting. So myself, one of my most favorite thing to do in the world is to sit one-on-one with someone and have a conversation. Whether that be an executive, whether that be someone looking for a job, whether that be education, whatever it is, that's my favorite thing to do. Over time, that turned into speaking, where people are like, wow, you're really passionate. And I'm a passionate person by nature. So I'm like, yeah, I'm passionate and I can get up and talk about what I talk about. So that turned into speaking. But one of the things I noticed is that my thoughts and my visions, I wasn't affecting people as much as I wanted to. So one-to-one is good. One-to-many, from the standpoint of speaking, was like, it was okay, but then how do I take a set of knowledge and try to infuse it into someone's mind where they can actually sit with something, take it in, digest it, and then come back with questions. And that's where the concept of a book came from. So not only is it healthy for them, because they don't have to take it in a 40-minute keynote, and a lot of people can't afford to work with a consultant personally as their personal coach, per se. What the book does is it helps them digest it in moments that they can truly, digest. But then for me, what it does is it clears my brain. It gives me new ways of looking at things. So I see it as mutually beneficial.
Well, I find this, the key passion is communication, whether communicating with people through writing, through public speaking, through one-to-one, through consulting. So the key thing is communication. And the other thing I've noticed you highlighted is the impact you want to have on the other person or persons or institute.
Yeah, well, I think in order to communicate well, you kind of have to put yourself out there. When you're one-on-one, you can be pretty guarded. But when your stuff's in a book, that you're signing, or when you're giving a keynote in front of thousands of people, you're out there. So I think that audacious. If you think about my company, it's Leapgen. Leap stands for love, energy, audacity, and proof. So how do you love what you do, which generates energy to do the audacious and prove value? That concept is from a great friend of mine, Steve Farber. He wrote a book called The Radical Leap. And I truly believe that in order to do that, to have an audacious kind of mindset, you have to put yourself out there, put a stake in the ground. And it might not be right for everyone, but it moves the world forward.
But even if it's not right for everyone, it's a step for self-discovery. It's going to be a positive experience either way.
That's my hope.
That's my opinion about that. That's very interesting. Your book is The Ultimate Guide
to a Digital Workforce Experience.
Digital Workforce Experience. Did you first have experience and then you've written the book? You wanted to document the experience and then share it with everyone? Or how did the process go?
So this is my second book. And what's really fascinating about books to me, the way that I got into books, which is a fascinating story, is when my father passed away, I found a book in his closet that was a book from my grandfather. And I never knew my grandfather wrote a book. Never knew.
Seriously?
And my grandfather was a professional wrestler, and he was suicidal. And he wrote a book. He penned a book while he was feeling this way. But this was before Amazon or before distribution of books. So I found this beautiful book that taught me so much about my grandfather and what was on his mind. But I found it in the bottom of a closet. So myself, as a father, I have two boys. They're 14 and 11. I said, I need to capture knowledge somehow. And blogs are good and things like that, but a physical document that
Yes.
someone can hold
Yes.
that captures your knowledge, and that we all have a certain amount of time on this planet, that you leave a legacy. So to answer your question, the concept of a book for me is, how do you try to A, leave a legacy, but at the same time, B, how do you take, I'm really blessed to travel around the world and work with leaders of all shapes and sizes, from all shapes and sizes of organizations. And, the person sitting in Egypt or the United States or London, they don't have an opportunity to see what I see. So that's the other thing is that the book does, is it allows you to capture. So to answer your question, the experience, your knowledge comes first, and then being able to turn your knowledge, which is just a blah of stuff, into something that people truly understand, and that you can tell a story that makes them feel like they're with you on those journeys. That's priceless to me.
Jason, can you share with us some of the new tools that can be adopted in today's technology?
Yeah, so I think there's a ton of tools out there. And one of the things that I always talk about with organizations all over the world is tell organizations to be careful of this. I call it SOS, shiny object syndrome. And shiny object syndrome is, hey, there's all these amazing tools out there, but truly looking at what you want to be great at.
The more choices, the more you're confused actually from the client side.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yeah, so there's great tools out there around voice, natural language processing. But if I don't have data underneath them, those tools don't work. There's some great new artificial intelligence tools out there, of course, but if I don't have data underneath them, they don't work. There's some great tools around creating a candidate experience or really looking at analytics. But all these tools require data. So, what I talk to organizations about all day, every day, is data, data, data. Data is the new capital. If you've got data, you can apply a myriad of tools to meet the worker where they are, whether it be voice, whether it be mobile, whether it be artificial intelligence, as long as you've got data. But if you don't have data,
the technology is kind of not useless, but you have to start all over.
Yeah, if you don't have good data, it requires people. And if it requires people, it can't be the workforce, it has to be HR people. So you really have to make this decision as to whether you want HR to be the people using the technology or the workforce. If it's the workforce, it has to require a solid data foundation. Otherwise, what the workforce uses won't make any sense to them.
Makes absolute sense. One of the common problems as well, I've personally noticed, is in project management, managing teams, and also same as it is a challenge for in some organizations. I find it became one of the major competences in jobs now is project management and team management, whether it's an HR job or another job. So what kind of highlights or tips or inputs you can give in that?
Yeah, so one of the things that I struggle with, and I really do struggle with, is the term project. Because a project denotes a beginning and an end. And we don't live in a world that's beginning and an end today. We live in a world that's continuous.
This changes all the rules.
Yeah,
I like that.
We're always getting better. So,
Okay.
I don't want to take someone and say, hey, you're doing this project from this time to this time, and here's your team and things like that. Like, I need a flow. I need it to be embedded into how an organization works. That continuous improvement is part of what we're doing. And it also, the more I think about projects, the more silos I create. So you're doing a project on learning. You're doing a project on performance. You're doing a project on recruiting. You're doing a project on employee experience. But each one of those projects roll up to a program. So I think that every organization around the world needs a digital program that's a continuously on model, and that underneath it's made up of projects. But at the program level is where all those pieces come together. And within that program level are things like change, marketing, storytelling, being prescriptive, truly thinking about how do I design processes towards the future, which is conversation. All of those types of things, strategy, are needed within that program level. And at the project level, fine, but let those people see how what they're doing ties up back to the overall program.
Well, let's assume there's an organization very interested in applying that. is the application difficult or easy, or what kind of challenges could be there in applying?
The challenge is building a team that's continuous. You need to build an innovation team that's continuous. And that, and everyone wants, there are organizations where people are like, hey, I want to be on the innovation team. I want to be on the innovation team. Like, it's not something where you switch in and off. Like, your job is innovation. There's also another job that's just data foundation, and they're both really good jobs. It's not one isn't a good job, one isn't the other, but this is my role, is continuous innovation, and that's my program that I'm focused on. So I didn't mean to completely blow your term project out of the water, but one of the things
I actually like that.
I think that's wrong with projects is I do a project. So here's one of the biggest things that drives me crazy in the HR technology space is go live parties. Yeah, I know that sounds really stupid. You can tell I'm a geek about this stuff, but I do this big project. It takes 2 years. I have a go live party. Everyone's gained 50 pounds. They've all gotten divorced. They're all tired, but we're live. And then what happens? I take all my good people and take them off that program and put them on to the next most important thing. In the book, I talk about this. Go live equals go begin. Like, once you're live, that's when you actually need the great people to say, how do I drive this new car down this new road that we finally got done? It's not the getting to the road that's important. It's once you're on the road, what do you do with it?
Indeed. Well, I'm sure while applying because it's obvious that your ideas are out of the box and innovative ideas and innovative practices, and the book as well. So I'm sure with innovation and introducing new ideas, always you find challenges in applying them or communicating them to clients. So if you can share one of the challenges you had and
it's daily. So I think of it as
part of your routine.
Yeah, well, I think of it as the mindset. I mean, here we're approaching things with an out-of-the-box mindset or a growth mindset.
Okay.
And you walk into an organization where the leadership has a fixed mindset. So a lot of us have growth mindsets where we see innovation. We don't say things don't have to stay the same. We don't just do things the same because they've been done the same for 30 years. We really see what the future can bring. But then I go into an organization and the organization has a fixed mindset, which means they don't like change, everything that goes along with that. So that's a clash right there.
Even if innovation is one of their values.
Innovation is one of their values, because that's not the way we work, that's not the way we think. What do you mean you're going to break those silos? What do you mean you're going to break these centers of excellence? I mean, so that's it. It's not even a sometimes you have this problem. It's an always you have this problem. But the only way to innovate is to truly think different and to truly help organizations understand. And this is the key to the whole question. The value of thinking different is X. Okay? And the value has to be tied back to a business outcome, not to an HR outcome. So many people say, oh, if we just change HR, everything will be better. Like, an executive doesn't see the impact of changing HR is something. It's revenue, it's customer sat, it's profitability, it's something that executive cares about. So truly saying what's the impact of change and innovation from a business standpoint and from a business unit standpoint is really where you can actually start to see this happen. If all you're doing is changing HR to change HR, that's a hard sell.
Yes. I was thinking while you're talking about, I'm trying to think from the client perspective, from the employee perspective, from your perspective as well. So what about the leaders in today's organizations? What would you advise them through all these options, through all these challenges? Where do they stand? Which direction should they go through?
So for HR leaders,
I'm sure leaders are kind of, they face moments that they're lost. They actually, sometimes they don't know.
Yeah, the biggest thing I can recommend is get out of HR. Like, HR leaders need to get out of HR, and HR leaders are business leaders. 70% of the spend of a company is people.
Not quit HR, get out of HR, big difference.
Yeah, well, I don't even I mean, I'm not afraid to
say of the HR comfort zone.
Yeah, I don't even think you should call it HR. Like, this should be people TV. HR is a function.
Okay.
What we're driving are people. the fourth economy, the fourth knowledge economy that we're in today is people. So HR is a department. I don't want to digitize HR. I want to digitize the way people work. I want to digitize the tools that they have to get their jobs done. I don't want to digitize a department. So for me, it's helping leaders understand that what we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that our people are actually doing the jobs we hired them to do. They're on board as fast as they can. They're doing the jobs the best way they can. They see the value in the job that they're doing. They're engaged in providing the best customer sat possible. All of those things. Now, if I break all that down, that's HR, but we don't call it HR. We're doing, this is what's driving this knowledge economy that we live in today. And that what's doing that is people. So for me, when you have that kind of a conversation with a CEO, and you tell that same CEO that LinkedIn knows more about his or her people than your HR department does, they're like, whoa, we've been doing something wrong here. Let's think about it. So my advice to HR leaders is embed yourself into the business, understand what you need to be great at when it comes to people, and make your focus that. And everything else, it's okay to be okay at. Payroll doesn't need to be great. Payroll just needs to be performing. You know, no one's ever going to say, great job on my paycheck this week. You know, as long as it's right, we're good.
Yes.
And that's
indeed.
a really important lesson for leaders to understand. So HR leaders oftentimes bring me in to talk to their CEO to help them actually say, guys, this is the role of HR in the future.
That's very informative and made me think as well. It's a kind of personal question. How do you work on innovating yourself? You know, sometimes innovative people, they face difficulty, they call it a mind block, a writer's block, whatever, but the block sometimes comes. How do you get over this block to keep yourself innovative, to keep yourself alive? Because innovation is your life right now, is your passion.
So the first thing is listening. You know, I had a great leader that once told me, two ears, one mouth. You have two ears and one mouth for a purpose. You know, you're listening more than you're talking. So for me, that's a huge, huge component, is listening to what's going on around. The second thing is listening and learning, not just from business people, but from outside of business. So from kids, from students, from what's going on in the consumer world when it comes to shopping. All of these things are experiences. And what I'm trying to do, not I, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to say the experience at work should look something like the experience outside. The experience outside is moving at a much more rapid pace. So you have to keep your eye on that. When people say, how do you think about the trends and how do you see where this world's going? And if you peel back the world of HR and look outside, that's where you learn it. So the fact, 3 years ago I said, hey, HR is going to be using voice. Employees are going to be using voice for a lot of their inquiries by 2020. You know, if you walk around the floor here, you see almost everyone talking about voice. I didn't just make that up to be like, as a brilliant person. The reason I said that is because that's how we're working outside of work. My 11-year-old goes 3 plus 2 minus 7 plus 8 plus 7 and gets the answer, like through voice. So watching what's going on outside of business is the second way. And then the third way is truly the application. So you have to imagine. You have to say, how might that thing, 3 plus 2, the example I just went through with my son, equate to something in business? And the example I'll use there is that Alex, my son, who's 11, he didn't want, when he gave that math problem, he actually didn't want a document to pop up that says how to do the problem. What he wanted was an answer.
The results, yeah.
So now, when I say the future inside a company is not Google search, when I say the future is an answer, like how much time off do I have? I don't want to go to a document to see how do I figure out how much time off I have. I just want my answer. So it's taking what's going on the outside and applying it to things on the inside. And that's, for me, how I stay relevant, A. But B, because the outside world is changing so much faster than the inside world, it's looking at all those things and saying, how do you package that in a way where an HR leader could consume it and say, oh, I totally get what this crazy dude's talking about.
Jason, you You enlightened our HR perceptions. Thank you so much for your time and for the communication, all possible ways of communicating your ideas, your out-of-the-box tools for changing and impacting this HR world and business world. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, just one thing I like to say really quickly, just to close.
Yes, please.
You know, I personally think, so remember we talked about the 4 components.
Yes.
Mindset, people, process, and technology. We've never lived in a world where mindset has been more focused on growth than fixed, like we do today. We've never lived in a world where our people are more ready to interact with knowledge than they are today. We've never lived in a world where the HR function wants to reinvent itself more than we do today. And we've never lived in a world where technology is more than ready. We've been waiting for the technology. So if you say mindset, people, process, and technology, that's why I personally think this is the most exciting time ever in this whole space of people and digital work. And that's why for me, for people like you and I, it's our time. We're the ones that now have the opportunity to go make a difference.
Indeed, it's time for, we have all the opportunities, we have all the tools available. We should actually seize these opportunities instead of going with the flow, instead of having fears or doubts.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing holding us back is us.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Jason.
Thanks for the time.
Thanks you.
Thanks.